There's a moment you'll live through and never forget. You didn't betray anyone. You didn't lie. Yet someone you love goes cold. A coworker begins to sharpen their words. A friend stops clapping when you rise. You look for your mistake. But the truth is older than you, deeper than them. You didn't cause their hostility. You awakened it. It always begins quietly. A small shift in tone. A warmth that used to feel effortless suddenly feels calculated. The laughter doesn't sound the same. The texts become shorter, slower. And those familiar compliments, the ones that once felt genuine, now arrive with a sting hidden beneath the sugar. At first you rationalize it. Maybe they're busy. Maybe I said something wrong. Maybe I've changed too much. You start analyzing yourself, trying to find the flaw that caused the distance. But often, there is no flaw. What you're feeling isn't rejection. It's resistance. Something in you has shifted. Maybe confidence, clarity, peace. And that change unsettles the emotional equilibrium others had with you. You see, when you grow, you unconsciously hold up a mirror. And not everyone likes what they see reflected back. Carl Jung said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." And the reverse is just as true. Everything in you that awakens discomfort in others points directly to their unhealed self. Your confidence exposes their insecurity. Your discipline reminds them of their avoidance. Your calm threatens the chaos they've grown comfortable living in. The hostility that seems to come out of nowhere isn't new. It was always there, dormant. Your evolution simply brought it to the surface. People don't hate you because you've changed. They hate the part of themselves they see reflected in you, the potential they abandoned, the truth they silenced, the freedom they never gave themselves permission to claim. And once that reflection appears, they either face it or they turn away, often by turning against you. Every human being carries a shadow, the hidden self that lives beneath the surface of who we pretend to be. It's the collection of traits, emotions, and instincts we've been told are too much, too dark, or too dangerous. The anger we suppress because it doesn't fit our image of being kind. The ambition we bury because it feels selfish. The desire we deny because we've been taught to feel shame. We spend our lives trying to appear good, humble, in control. But the parts of us that we exile don't disappear. As Jung wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." What we refuse to face in ourselves doesn't vanish. It simply waits, silent, watching, until the day it's triggered by someone who dares to live the way we've been afraid to. That's when projection begins. When you stand tall, the insecure don't see strength. They see arrogance. When you speak truth, the fearful don't hear honesty. They hear defiance. When you walk in peace, the restless don't feel inspired. They feel provoked. It's not you they're reacting to. It's the unlived version of themselves that your presence brings to light. You become a mirror for their disowned energy, the part of their psyche they've locked away. And instead of embracing that reflection, they reject it. Because to face their shadow would mean admitting that their carefully constructed identity is incomplete. So they protect the mask by turning against you, by criticizing, mocking, or withdrawing. It's easier to label you arrogant, cold, or fake than to admit, "You remind me of everything I've denied in myself." That is the tragedy of the shadow. People spend their lives fighting mirrors instead of facing what the mirror reveals. But here's the deeper truth. Their rejection of you is not proof of your flaw. It's evidence of their fear, the fear of meeting the self they've spent a lifetime hiding from. Every relationship is a dance. not between two souls, but between two masks. Carl Jung called this the persona, the role we play to survive in the world. It's the polite smile when we want to scream, the agreeable nod when we want to disagree, the appearance of control when we're falling apart inside. We build these masks early, to be liked, to belong, to stay safe. But here's the paradox. The more we rely on them, the further we drift from who we really are. Most people never take theirs off. They live entire lives hidden behind, "I'm fine. I'm easygoing. I don't mind." And then, someone comes along who doesn't play the game. Someone authentic, someone real. And everything begins to shake. When you stop pretending, you don't just liberate yourself. You threaten every person still enslaved to their persona, because your authenticity becomes a mirror. And that mirror reflects everything they've been avoiding, the lies they tell, the compromises they make, the masks they've mistaken for identity. They built their safety on pretending. You became dangerous the moment you stopped pretending. That's when projection begins. They start to say things like, "You've changed. You think you're better than us. You've become difficult." But those words are code. What they really mean is, "You stopped feeding my illusion, and now I have to face myself." It's not your truth they hate. It's the reflection it forces them to see. Because when someone committed to performance meets someone committed to authenticity, one of two things happens. They either awaken or they attack. And if they choose the latter, remember, you didn't break the connection, you simply stopped pretending there was one. Most hostility does not begin with hate. It begins with fear. Not fear of you, but fear of losing power over you. Every relationship carries an invisible structure, an unspoken hierarchy. Someone gives validation, and someone receives it. Someone leads, and someone follows. Someone depends, and someone dominates. It's not always conscious, but it's always there. And for a long time, you might have played the quieter role. You kept the peace. You agreed. You avoided conflict. You made yourself smaller just to make others comfortable. But then something changed. You began to heal. You started saying no. You stopped apologizing for existing. And in doing so, you shifted the balance. The person who once felt superior suddenly feels small. The one who relied on your approval begins to panic, because without your compliance, they lose the leverage they once held. They can no longer control how you see yourself, and that loss feels like rejection. So instead of facing that loss, they rewrite the story. They call you selfish for setting boundaries. They call you ungrateful for choosing peace over people-pleasing. They call you cold because you no longer warm them with your self-sacrifice. But you are not cold. You're sovereign. You've stopped feeding the energy imbalance that once defined the relationship. You've stopped existing as a reflection of someone else's needs. And that's terrifying. Not because you've done harm, but because your freedom exposes their dependence. It shows them how much of their worth came from controlling yours. Jung understood this perfectly. The moment you withdraw projection, the other person loses access to the version of themselves they created through you. And instead of confronting that emptiness, they attack the source of their discomfort, you. So remember this. When someone accuses you of being distant, what they often mean is, "I can no longer use your light to feel whole." Jung once said that envy is the most dangerous of all emotions, because it hides behind silence. The envious rarely announce themselves. They don't storm out or scream. They smile. They nod. They say, I'm happy for you. But something in their tone doesn't match. Their warmth cools just slightly. Their texts slow down. Their jokes start cutting a little deeper. It's subtle, but your soul feels it before your mind does. They won't always attack you directly. Instead, they'll withdraw affection. They'll downplay your achievements. They'll cheer for you in public and quietly compete with you in private. Because envy isn't hatred, it's hurt. It's grief disguised as resentment. They're not angry at your success. They're angry at the reflection of what they abandoned in themselves. You remind them of the life they could have lived, the courage they didn't choose, the freedom they still fear. Jung wrote, "What we most envy in others reveals what we most deny in ourselves." Your light doesn't wound them because it blinds them. It wounds them because it reminds them of the voice they silenced, the risks they never took, the dreams they buried to stay safe. And here's the truth. You didn't betray them. You simply stopped shrinking to fit their comfort. You stopped pretending that smallness was humility. You stopped dimming your light to protect fragile egos. But when you rise, you disrupt the silent agreements that kept others comfortable in their limitations. They can no longer feel enough by comparison, and rather than evolve, they resist. Envy is the shadow's most cunning disguise. It smiles while it resents. It applauds while it aches. And sometimes it calls itself concern. But remember this, their envy isn't your burden. You didn't cause their pain. You simply revealed it. And no one is hated more fiercely than the one who dares to embody what others secretly desire. There always comes a moment, the breaking point, the place where their discomfort with you becomes unbearable. Up to now, they've hidden it behind politeness. A smile here, a small jab there. But inside, something's building. Pressure, projection, pain. And eventually they must choose. Face their shadow, or destroy the mirror. Most people choose destruction. They gossip. They mock. They twist your story to pretend their own. They need to believe you're the problem, because the alternative is too terrifying, that the problem lives within them. So they rewrite history. They tell others you changed, that you think you're better, that you became selfish. It's a defense mechanism, a desperate attempt to protect the fragile image they've built of themselves. But here's what Jung understood. You are not their enemy. You are their trigger. And a trigger is also a teacher. Your presence awakens what their unconscious has worked so hard to bury. Every time you speak truth, they hear the echo of their own silence. Every time you walk in integrity, they feel the weight of their own compromise. You remind them of the person they could be, and that reminder burns. This is the silent war Jung described, not between good and evil, but between awareness and avoidance. Awareness says, look inside, integrate what you fear. Avoidance says, blame them, attack the mirror, destroy the reflection. The tragedy is that the war isn't really with you. It's with their own unlived self. You just happen to stand in the line of fire, so when they lash out, withdraw, or turn cold, remember, it's not personal. It's psychological. They're not rejecting your truth. They're running from their own. And one day, maybe not soon, maybe not consciously, they'll realize that your presence wasn't the threat. It was the invitation. Here's where true consciousness begins. You are not immune to this dynamic. The same shadow that lives in others lives in you. You too project. You too judge. You too meet mirrors disguised as people. There are individuals who irritate you for reasons you can't explain. Something about them feels off. Their voice, their confidence, their choices, they just bother you. And you tell yourself it's about them. But often it's not. Jung said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." Because every reaction is a message. Every judgment is a mirror. The arrogant? Maybe your own confidence still waits in exile. The lazy? Maybe your soul is begging you to rest. The controlling? Maybe your inner child still fears chaos. The people who trigger you most often are the ones carrying pieces of your own disowned self. They are walking reminders of the traits you've rejected, denied, or buried to survive. When you see this, something shifts. You stop living in blame and start living in awareness. You stop asking, "What's wrong with them?" and start asking, "What part of me is this showing?" This doesn't mean you excuse toxic behavior. It means you understand the deeper layers beneath your reaction. It means you turn irritation into inquiry and anger into insight. To live consciously is to realize that the outer world is a stage, and everyone you meet is playing a role in your psychological evolution. Some arrive to challenge you. Some arrive to mirror you. Some arrive to trigger the shadow you've refused to see. And when you stop seeing enemies, you start seeing reflections. That's where true growth begins, not in perfection, not in control, but in the quiet recognition that the light and the shadow both live in you, and every person you meet is helping you remember that truth. Authenticity is magnetic and threatening, because when you live in truth, you automatically become a mirror that exposes lies. People say they want honesty. They say they value authenticity. But when you stop playing roles, when you stop performing for approval, you'll notice how quiet the room gets. Friends who once praised your humility might call you changed. Family who admired your kindness might say you've become distant. Co-workers who used to cheer your success might start to withdraw, not because you did anything wrong, but because your truth disrupted their illusion. Jung wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But he never said it would be comfortable, because authenticity costs something. It costs approval. The more real you become, the fewer people will clap. But the applause you lose outside is replaced by a deep quiet inside. That quiet is peace. It's the sound of your soul finally breathing after years of suffocating under expectation. You will lose people. But what you lose in approval, you gain in alignment. Because the ones who truly love you will adapt. They'll learn to meet you where you're real. And the ones who only loved your mask will fall away. That's not betrayal. That's clarity. Authenticity doesn't destroy real relationships. It only exposes the false ones. The truth is, every time you choose to live honestly, you give others permission to do the same. Your courage becomes a quiet revolution, a ripple that reminds the world it's safe to be real. And yes, it will cost you. But pretending costs more. Because every time you betray yourself for acceptance, you buy love with the currency of your soul. So let them talk, let them drift, let the false fall away. Because the moment you stop pretending, you stop living half alive. And that is the beginning of real freedom. So when people start to hate you, quietly or loudly, when the air shifts, when the warmth fades, when someone's tone turns sharp and you can't figure out why, don't chase explanations. Don't beg to be understood. Don't twist yourself into smaller shapes just to fit back into their comfort zone. Instead, pause, breathe, and ask yourself, what part of me does their reaction reveal? In them and in me. Because every conflict is a mirror, every rejection a reflection. They're showing you something about their pain, their projection, their shadow, and maybe, if you're honest, about yours too. You don't have to fix them. You don't have to convince them. You only have to see. See what's being triggered, the insecurity that needs reassurance, the pride that craves recognition, the fear that wants control. Once you see it, you've already taken its power away. Because projection only controls you when you believe it's true. When someone says, "You've changed," what they really mean is, "You no longer validate the version of me that needed you to stay small." And that's okay. Their story is their lesson. Yours is your freedom. So stop fighting shadows outside yourself. The only battle worth fighting is the one within. Because once you integrate your own shadow, once you bring awareness to the parts of yourself you used to deny, you stop fearing it in others. You can look at hatred without hating back. You can witness envy without shrinking. You can stand in misunderstanding and remain at peace. That's the quiet power Jung pointed toward, the freedom that comes when you no longer need to defend who you are. So when they project, criticize, or withdraw, see it, learn from it, and then let it go. Their projections are not your prison. Your awareness is the key. Here's the irony of it all. When you stop needing to defend yourself, you win the invisible war. You stop trying to explain your worth to those committed to misunderstanding it. You stop absorbing other people's projections as truth. You stop translating every silence as rejection, every withdrawal as proof that you've failed. You stop apologizing for your light, because the moment you stop reacting, you begin to witness. You start to notice things without taking them personally. You see the criticism and think, that's their pain speaking. You feel the envy and know, that's their shadow surfacing. And with that recognition, your power quietly returns. Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." But when you start to see clearly, when you recognize what's projection, what's pain, what's shadow, you reclaim authorship over your own story. You stop reacting like a puppet pulled by invisible strings. You become aware, and awareness breaks every spell, because hate cannot survive in a mind that understands it, and envy cannot poison a heart that no longer takes it personally. You stop fighting shadows and start integrating them. That's what Jung called an individuated being, a person who no longer sees darkness as evil, but as unclaimed light waiting to be brought home. When you reach this point, something profound happens. The same things that once hurt you now teach you. The same people who triggered you now reveal you. And the hostility that once drained you now strengthens you. This is the quiet revolution of consciousness, when you no longer need the world to be peaceful for you to be at peace. You stand calm in the storm, unafraid, unmoved, integrated. And that's when the war ends. Not because they changed, but because you did. So when someone suddenly starts hating you, don't shrink, don't chase, don't retaliate, just see clearly. They are not truly seeing you. They're seeing the parts of themselves they still fear, the wounds they haven't healed, the shadows they still refuse to meet. Your peace threatens their chaos. Your growth exposes their stagnation. Your authenticity shatters their illusion. And in that moment, you stop being part of their story. You become their lesson. because your existence holds up a mirror. Some will use it to see, others will try to break it. But either way, you've done your part. You don't need to fight darkness for the light to exist. You just have to be the light, quietly, consistently, without apology. Jung wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Let others call it fate. You call it awakening. Because awareness is the end of unconscious warfare. It's the moment you step out of the battlefield of projection and into the sanctuary of understanding. So when hate finds you, when envy whispers, when the silence grows heavy, remember, you are not losing people, you are shedding illusions. And that's not tragedy, that's evolution.